Welcome to our daily reflection for this Sunday, September 8th, the Nativity of Our Lady. And this is a great day. This is the day we're having our opening convocation mass here on the campus at the Augustine Institute, where we welcome our new students and kick off the fall semester. And of course, at the Augustine Institute, we love to dedicate all that we do to Our Lady, that she intercedes to Jesus, her Son, that we may be fruitful and effective in our mission. And today's a great day to ask Our Lady for whatever you need and whatever petitions you have on your heart. Well, the readings today on this beautiful Sunday are really beautiful. And I love the beginning from Isaiah 35. And there's just two threads I want to pull out from Isaiah 35. The first one is just a word of encouragement that we need. You know, God says to Isaiah, "Speak to those who are faint-hearted and are anxious." And what is he to speak? Be strong and don't be afraid. Right? This phrase that we get throughout salvation history, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. God can't seem to say it enough to us throughout salvation history to not be afraid. He is God. And you know, when we get really anxious and worried about all of our problems and all the different things, we forget that God is God, that He's Lord, that Jesus is enthroned in the heavens. And we think that the world is something we have to navigate alone by ourselves. In fact, God gives us the reason that we should be strong and not be afraid. And it's in the next line that follows. Be strong, fear not, behold your God. Here is your God. In other words, God is with us. Such an important fundamental thing for us to remember. I really think that the first principle of being a Christian is to realize that God is with us. And that is so important. And then the second thing that we get from Isaiah is a great prophecy. That's this prophecy that, you know, God's going to come, and what's going to be the sign that God is present among us when God does the renewal of Israel and the world? Well, there's going to be some amazing signs God promises to the prophet Isaiah. One will be that the eyes of the blind will be opened, and that the ears of the deaf will be opened, and then the mute will be able to speak. And that leads us right to the gospel today, where Jesus is in the area of the Decapolis, and they bring a man who is deaf. He can't hear. And of course, being deaf, it's very hard to speak. And he has a speech impediment and he can't speak. And so he can't receive and hear the words of others, and he can't speak words out. Imagine that kind of handicap, to be unable to hear and receive communication and to be able to share and communicate one's own thoughts and words. What an incredible handicap. And Jesus looks upon him with compassion and pity. He puts his finger in his ears and first heals his hearing. Because before God enables and calls us to speak, He wants us to listen. We need to receive hearing. And of course, hearing is so important that we have two ears. We have one mouth, which means we should listen far more than we speak. And that's kind of written into the natural signs of how the body is made and designed by God. And God also shows this by prioritizing the healing of hearing over speaking. And then He heals him to be able to speak. But then Jesus does something really almost cruel. After He heals the deaf man and He heals his speaking impediment, He tells him not to speak of these things, of his healing. Now you could ask yourself, why does Jesus make that command? I think what our Lord's inviting the deaf man and the mute man to do is, before He just talks about what happened, to reflect in his heart first in prayer and reflection and meditation about the mystery of what God has done for him. And then to speak after he's prayed and meditated and he's realized the significance of what has happened to him. And maybe if he spent that time in contemplation and prayer before he spoke about what God and Jesus had done in his life, maybe he'd realized that there was a prophecy in the Old Testament, Isaiah 35, that when God was going to do His great work of restoration and come Himself in person, the deaf would hear and the mute would speak. And maybe he'd realized that not only did he have a personal healing, but that this personal healing is a sign of God's larger work of salvation. And that's what God's inviting us to reflect on today. That in Jesus and in His great healing, there is a new movement, a new moment in salvation history that's being unleashed. And today, the question for us in meditation as well is, do I speak about the things of God? Do I speak about what God does in my life? In other words, am I spiritually mute? Do I not talk about God and what he does in my life to my friends, to my family, to my neighbors, to my coworkers? If I never speak about God and what he does in my life, I'm spiritually mute. But in order to speak about God, we first need to listen to God. And that's what we're called to do and reflecting on these readings today. May the Lord bless and keep you. Thanks to God's providence, I'm speaking to you from the Augustine Institute's new campus in St. Louis, Missouri. We have this wonderful 286-acre state-of-the-art campus, which is going to allow us to transform our mission from simply having digital platforms to now having a physical platform that complements those digital platforms. It allows us to provide in-person education and training in the faith. We think this is going to be transformative, increasing our student enrollment, providing and allowing us to have conferences and retreats for the church and for the Catholic laity and religious across North America. Help the Augustine Institute serve Christ and the church with this new campus. A gift of $100 or more will allow you to receive a gift in preparation for Advent called Waiting for Christ by St. John Henry Newman. We'll send that to you before Advent, and you can go to augustineinstitute.org/give and make a donation today.